All right, good afternoon, and welcome to the PodCase Podcast, where we answer your questions about personal injury cases. I am Rusty Messer with Big River Trial Attorneys, your host. Co-hosting today with us is Maria, our client support specialist. Maria, what question are we answering today for our users?
Hi, Rusty. Today's question is, who is liable after a rideshare accident? This is a very confusing topic for many people, so let's break it down step by step.
I love this question. Uh, Ride shares, Uber, Lyft, other ones out there have become very popular and they are very convenient. I use them actually myself pretty often when I'm traveling. Uh, but just like every other vehicle on the road, crashes happen. The first thing you need to know is that if you are the passenger in a ride share vehicle that is involved in an accident, you are not at fault, right? It's not the one to blame. However, figuring out who is to blame and who has to pay for that can be tricky. Uh, if it was another driver, not the driver of the vehicle you're in, obviously they would be at fault, or at least that would be the first party we would look at. It could be one or more parties, could be two people. Uh, Everybody driving on the road in Louisiana is required to carry at least minimum coverage insurance, which is 15,000 per person with a max of 30,000 per claim. Some people have more. So if that other driver caused the crash, they're going to be at fault, and we're going to be looking at their insurance policy. Now, first, believe it or not, if you have coverage and you are a passenger in a rideshare vehicle and the person who hits you only has minimum coverage, you can still make a claim against your if your damages were bad enough. Your follows you around like that. Okay. Now, let's say it was not the fault of some other driver, but it was the fault of the person in the vehicle that you were riding with, right? It was the rideshare driver. So now it depends on what's going on with their rideshare app, right? You've probably seen where you've gotten into a rideshare and they've got an Uber sign, they've got a Lyft sign, they've got three or four of them. So if the rideshare driver is driving along, gets into a crash, that driver's vehicle is responsible, right? Now, this might come up in a situation where, let's say, somebody gets into the ride share and they're like, "Hey, why don't you not log in? I'm going to give you $10 and you take me over here." Well, in that case, they are not logged into their app. They're just running like a side hustle for you. Only their personal insurance is going to come up. If they are logged into the app but don't have a passenger, then Uber at least provides 50,000 of coverage, and it's kind of standard across the board.
That's interesting, Rusty, but what if the rideshare company tries to deny liability?
Surprisingly, that happens pretty often. So obviously, that's going to come down to the evidence you have after the crash. Uh, and we'll talk about the things to do after a crash in a moment. But you're going to have to prove that liability uh, on the fault of either the driver or the rideshare company. So we mostly auto accidents, but it's not always an auto accident, right? There are times when people have gotten into a rideshare vehicle and gotten robbed. There are times when people have gotten into a rideshare vehicle and the driver of that rideshare vehicle has done worse things to them, right? Well, the rideshare company does have some responsibility in who it lets get behind the wheel and put the sign on the car. So some of the things you would look at for the rideshare vehicle are maybe failure to screen or train a driver. The rideshare vehicles can't just hire anybody. They need to make sure the person is licensed. They should be doing some background check. They don't want somebody who's got 15 wrecks in their past, maybe a bunch of DUIs or something like that. So, like any vehicle accident in Louisiana, if the property damage is more than $500 or it involves serious injury, you have to file a police report. Uh, Obviously, you may not know if it's more than $500 of damage. So the safe bet is to just always call the police and file a police report. That is a legal requirement in Louisiana. You should take pictures. Take pictures of the vehicle you were in, pictures of the other vehicle, the license plates, the driver's license, the insurance cards, as much information as you can get. If there are any witnesses there at the scene, you want to make sure you get their name, their phone number, and their address if you can get it, because you may need to speak to them later. You may need them to testify at trial later. Obviously, if you are hurt, you need to seek medical attention immediately. That takes precedence over everything else we just talked about. If you are seriously injured, where you need to get to an ambulance and go, then go. Don't hang around waiting to take pictures when you need to be at the emergency room. But if you're hurt, but it's not that bad, then do some investigation. Get medical attention as needed. If you're even if you leave the scene of the crash and you feel okay, you should still go get checked out. Getting in an accident is like getting hit by an NFL lineman. I mean, just run over. Sometimes you don't know how bad it hurt. Maybe you're scared, you're nervous, you're wound up, and you don't realize the injuries that you have. You wake up that next day, that following day, and you realize how bad you've been hurt. So I definitely recommend getting checked out. If you've hit your head, you're going to want to make sure you get an MRI, make sure that you don't have any sort of brain injury, concussion, anything like that. The thing I want to caution you on is after this happens, maybe a couple of days, maybe a week or so, you're going to get a call from some insurance company, right? Probably not your insurance company, probably one for the at-fault driver if it was a third-party driver, one from the rideshare company if the rideshare driver was responsible. Don't talk to them. They are not your friend. They are not there to help you get the best result you can get. They are there to gather evidence they can use against you later to argue why you should get paid less. Ask you questions like, but you were okay after the crash, right? And you say, oh yeah, I was okay. And that's because you didn't realize how bad you were hurt. Or maybe try to get you to say something like, you didn't have your seatbelt on or whatever. So don't talk to the insurance company. And I always advise that you go speak with an attorney. An experienced accident attorney will know what steps you should take next. They shouldn't be giving you medical advice, but they may have some ideas on maybe where you should go get checked out for treatment. I mean, certain clinics that they work with, things like that. And just speak with an attorney about the type of case you have. Do you have a claim against some other driver? Do you have a claim against the rideshare company? Do you have a claim against some other driver? Do you have a claim against the rideshare company? Do you have a claim against your own UM? Like there are times when there's a vehicle crash that more than one party is involved or more than one party is at fault rather. So if the crash involved another vehicle, but they were partly at fault, and the person driving the rideshare vehicle you were in were partly at fault, then you're going to have a claim against both of them. That's what we call a comparative fault in Louisiana. So those are the things I would definitely do following a crash, whether it's in a rideshare vehicle or not. You always want to take care of yourself and get as much evidence as you can. All right, Maria, I think that's all the time that we have today. I want to thank the user who submitted that question. Thank you for co-hosting. Again, this is Rusty Messer with the PodCase Podcast. If you have found this useful, if you've enjoyed it, please make sure to like and subscribe.